this will be the next activity that we do. It's going to take about uh, 30 minutes or so, I would say, 30 to 40 minutes. And we're going to actually ideate through the problem space and come up with actual solutions that we might ultimately test or we might ultimately move forward with more validation and verification. So I'm going to give everyone a break before we get to the next activity. So let's take a 10-minute break and let's get back at 3:10 um, and go through that. Nice. I love that. Yes, I always progress over perfection, Katie. Perfection has stopped me so many times and made me overthink things. And when I think of things in terms of play and just putting something quick and dirty out there, all of that overthinking dissolves. So definitely, I need that sticky note on my laptop too. All right. So yeah, let's come back at 3:10 and get started with the third activity. And I'll just make a note for everyone. All right, for folks tuning in for this activity, I'm just going to kind of give a quick recap in the next 5 minutes about what we did in the past and how that's building into this activity. If you weren't here for the past sessions, we did between 1 p.m. and 2 p.m., we did a career planning session where we talked about each other's career paths, what kind of career path we were best drawn to, transferable skill sets from the past, knowledge gaps that we still had to fill in UX, starting to set a vision for our portfolio and changing our current approach to the UX job search. So really gaining clarity about what to put in the UX portfolio based on our past skill sets that are transferable, but also on what we're excited to solve in the future and what we're passionate about in the future, and really thinking more about that long-term vision of how we want to make an impact in the next 5 to 10 years in UX, but also how are we going to focus more on the short term and kind of break into UX in the next year or so. So that was what we took away from the UX career planning session. I will send out recordings so that you have access to all this information. In the second session between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m., we went through choosing a specific problem topic or a couple of problem topics and looking on gaining clarity from each of those problem topics and really carrying forward the scope of that problem space, right? So I ideated on 3 different problem statements. I'm going to be choosing one statement or one problem space for the next activity. But for this activity, I just kind of wanted to have fun and play around. And we focused on, what's the problem we're trying to solve with a specific community. We talked about how might we statements to invite other people to help us build and co-create. We talked about differentiators with our statement. We talked about the opposite, considering an opposite assumption, finding ways to disprove our problem statement and work around obstacles where our problem statement was concerned. And then we wanted to then face more of the practical aspects of our idea. And so this is where the next session comes in, where we're really focused on going through a rapid design process for our one project topic. In this case, I'm going to choose the social media in real life statement, and I'm going to kind of address that a little bit more. Or should I do the dating one? I don't know. I'm like thinking between the dating and the social media one, and I'm not sure which one I'm going to choose, but I will be forced to choose one topic, and I'm going to work through the design workbook with you with that one topic in mind. And I would love it if you could do the same as well, and work through one project topic that you choose from that past activity and move from there. So we'll get started in about 1 more minute. For the folks who are just coming back and being refreshed, please let me know. I see, Sue, that you're on camera. Let me go ahead and share the activity with you. So Sue, I just DM'd you the link. And if anyone else would like the link, please speak up and turn your camera on, introduce yourself, and I will share the link with you. All right. Let's start to get right into the next activity. So I hope folks are coming back from their break and we can get started with this activity. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So with the first activity, I want you to very quickly, we've spent about a whole hour, 50 minutes coming up with a problem statement. So I want you to sketch out an idea or a couple of ideas to solve your how might we statement, the one that you choose. So for everyone, I'm going to be choosing the in real life, the social media connection versus IRL connection problem statement, because I think that's the harder one to solve, and focus on that. So take a time to just put a sticky note on what your problem statement will be, and then we can go through the board. So for everyone who's on this Fig Jam activity, you'll see that there's a whole bunch of different design workbooks. I want you to just claim a workbook for yourself. So I'm just going to write my name here. Oh, I can't. I can just put a sticky note here actually. So I'm just going to claim this workbook as mine. And basically the workbook consists of this whole line of activities. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm going to work through these 7 activities in the workbook in my section, and I want everyone to kind of claim their workbook or their board, and we can go from there. So I see that Letitia has claimed the second board. That's great to see. And I believe Sue has claimed the third board, and I see Kay claiming the fourth board. So yeah, as you're kind of thinking through it, just claim your board. And once everyone's kind of settled with claiming their board, I'm going to start the timer for 5 minutes. And we're going to just start to design an idea to solve that how might we statement or that problem statement. Let me actually pull my how might we statement from the old board so that we can, as a reminder to myself about what I'm trying to solve in the first place, because that's half the battle, is to keep yourself focused when you're designing. So here is my statement. How might we facilitate meaningful in real life connection from online social media interactions? So I'm just going to give everyone a minute to pull their how might we statement, and then we can go ahead and get started. So I'm going to set the timer for 5 minutes, which includes that minute to pull your how might we statement, and we'll go from there. So let's see. I like to use the sketch tool. So for folks who are thinking, you can either put your ideas down on sticky notes if you don't feel like sketching things out. I like to sketch, so I like to use the marker tool down there and then sketch something. So maybe it is a, maybe when we interact with a post, it has to be kind of, the call to action has to be about messaging. Let's see, maybe now I'll go back to a sticky note. So call to action, which is CTA on social media posts, is always connected to a meetup or event. So if I need to, follow some, creators or artists, I can always, or influencers, I'm always connected to their events, and I always get a chance to connect in some real way with the influencers that I like or the people in my life, right? So maybe this is for social media influencer connection, influencer group connection. But what about personal connections? So maybe when someone posts something who's like in my friend group, I have an inner circle, and these are my 5 people who are in my inner circle, who are close friends and family. And then the moment they post, I know where they're hanging out and I know their locations. So I know Instagram is trying to play around with like publishing your location, which is a little weird, but like I already do that with my close friends and family. So like my mom and dad, my sisters and cousins. So maybe when my sister posts that she's somewhere, I get to kind of see if I can meet up with my sister as she posts. Meet up with inner circle as they post a story. See where they are hanging out. Something like that. So call to action is a in real life connection. So those are the 2 ideas I'm thinking of. And this is actually inspired by one of the students who's working in our cohort currently. She's focusing on a app for the LGBTQ community and fostering, more personal, intimate connections through an alternative social media app. So we're really excited by her idea, and I hope to share more with you about her idea as it progresses. I'll pause there and give you guys 2 more minutes to think through your ideas and sketch things. I see a couple of folks sketching, which is great to see. And I see a couple of folks writing stickies, which is also great to see. We have about 1 more minute left. All right, we're coming up on time, so I'm going to start looking at folks' work. Um, Create a separate interface with less visual distraction. Many companies engage with overly crowded apps, taking away the attention of clients, more focused clients, faster shopping, more satisfied customers. I really like that. I see folks looking into ongoing community events, resources sharing possibilities, volunteer for elder care. Interesting. I really like this kind of starting to build the community around intergenerational or group housing. So that's interesting. I want to ask, how did that feel, right? I just kind of threw you right into coming up with ideas without any prep. So how did that feel? If anyone wants to talk about that feeling of ideating right off the bat.
Think it takes us out of our comfort zone having to think about a solution straight away. And at least from my end, I also feel like if we had more people to share ideas from the same topic, I think we would have reached solutions faster, or at least more creative ideas.
Yeah, yeah, it was intentional. Letitia is like, oh, we had this problem statement. Okay, let's just go solve something. Let's just go build something. And that's the biggest mistake that every startup makes, or a bunch of if you notice in the startup world, actually 80% of startups or 90% of startups fail because they just build something without validating it, without thinking through it. They're like, oh yeah, I have this cool idea. Let's go build. And yes, it's exciting to kind of go do that for a little bit. It kind of gives us a quick dopamine hit because we get to like play with ideas, but nobody else looked at our idea. Nobody else validated, is this an idea that people want or need in the first place? So it was intentional. It was supposed to feel like, oh my God, what is this? Like, what's going on? Um, and so in real design processes, we're actually going to take more time to understand the problem, understand the audience we're trying to design for, and then come up with something a little bit more intentional. And the thing is, we might not get it right once, right? No startup gets it right once. You'll see a lot of startups, the ones that are actually successful, try multiple times to solve problems, fail, and then suddenly like the light bulb goes off, they hit the nail on the head, they found the dart board and they hit the dart in the bullseye, and now they have this successful idea that they can monetize. And we talk more about that process of validating and vetting with qual and quant data. From my own professional past, in the last 10 years, I have tried to build 4 different startups or 5. 3 of them failed, which meant that they didn't make money. and they didn't even make much of a community. Two of them succeeded, but it took tries, right? It took a lot of trial and error, and I just got better and better at vetting my ideas with qualitative and quantitative data and moving past the bad ideas faster, or getting into more of the detail on where do I need more context to build more intentionally. So that's the muscle we're going to try and massage today in this 1 hour. But it's not going to be just 1 hour where you design something brilliant. It's going to take months, maybe even years before you build something that's really viable. But by massaging these skill sets, you will eventually get there, right? It's not a short-term thing. It's just to start exercising those muscles. So let's move to the next activity, the design something useful and meaningful for your partner. We don't have as many folks online, but today I want you to kind of DM people that you see here today or go on Reddit. And I want you to start looking for data in your problem space. So if my topic was in real life versus social media connection, I'm going to start looking for Reddit posts, context. I might ask you questions in the general chat message that people can answer. And I want to start to collect data directly from my community. We're going to do this in about 10 minutes. So it's going to be like very rapid. In the real world, we will, as researchers, we might take a couple of weeks, a week, 2 weeks to do this for an actual product or feature. But here, I just wanted to get you to gather as much context as you can from your demographic in the next 10 minutes and put that data dump here. So put all the sticky notes of the data that you gather here. I will talk through my process out loud, and you can kind of follow it along, and you can do your own process of researching and gathering that context. So let's set the timer and go for it. 10 minutes. All right. So again, I'm going to remind myself what I'm designing for in the first place. I always like to put my how might we statement up top. And I want to gather some data um, on this demographic. So I might ask the general chat a couple of questions and also do some online research. So I might ask, what catches your eye when you visited social media today versus this past week? So that's my question to you. I'm trying to ask what questions so I can get more context and data around your perception. And so that's my one question, and I'm going to put the data in as different people chime in and answer that question in the chat. As other folks are ideating, please feel free to ask the chat for answers to your questions that you're trying to answer. I might also ask a question like, what social media connections have led to in real life meetups for you? And my apologies if you hear my dog, she's a little feisty today. So these are the kind of questions I would ask as a researcher to really get context on whether it's worth building this idea in the first place. How do you like to keep up with friends? Both IRL and online. Oh, I would be happy to. She's a little feisty. Her name's Cookie. She is, I don't know if you can see her. I'd have to put my filter off here. I'll stop blurring my background. There she is. Miss Cookie, looking at me, really mad. So, yep. So those are the kinds of questions I would ask now that we're coming up at 7 minutes. And please feel free, folks, to answer those questions if you have answers for them. That's my, in research, we do something called guerrilla testing sometimes, especially in startups, where if I need a quick answers to something, I might go right to a cafe and start asking people questions or chatting people up in public spaces. So that's a quick and easy way to get data fast. What I'm also going to do is start to do some online research. So social media, consumption, data. And I'm just typing that into Google, very preliminary search. So 5.6 billion people are active on social media today. That's nine, and the average user spends 2 hours on social media per day. So I'm just going to write that down as context. Average person spends 2 hours on social media a day. So can we convert some of that time into IRL interaction? Is my question. As a designer, how do we it almost feels like what we design kind of makes us more unhealthy sometimes. So how do we kind of mitigate what we already designed? Let me do some more research. Oh, I did not know this, but YouTube and Facebook are the most widely used platforms, followed by Instagram and TikTok. So let me write that down. I'm going to go on Statista. It's one of my favorite apps to understand social networks and just data on specific industries. Yep, social consumption is going up. Oh, I used to have a subscription for this. So this is like, if I'm very serious about this topic, I might get a subscription and start building something. Let's take a look at more data. Let me go on Reddit because Reddit always has interesting social media consumption, Reddit. Ooh, how I immediately reduced my social media usage. So people talk about addiction, having limited success. Oh, nice. Okay. So this person eliminated short form content, but I'm really looking for the emotion around this. So people find social media to be addictive, addiction struggles, hard to stop, going cold turkey. And I kind of do the same thing. I don't look at too much short form content because I know I'll just go down a rabbit hole. I also have a screen time app. Yep. I love looking at the emotion around Reddit posts. And that's the same thing we do when we talk to people. Um, because, secondary data like competitors and forums are not always in depth enough to gather emotional UX research and really understand how to design for differentiators because the data just is too superficial, but it's a good place to start. Ooh, so people are feeling lethargic and less energized, having a hard time getting out of bed, depression, lethargic, tired, depression. So these are all the emotions that social media gives us, right? Emotions around SNS, social media. Ooh, this is a really interesting one because it's going for that middle ground. So people are talking about curation, limits to spending time online. So yeah, this is really interesting to mine in terms of the emotions. Social media emotions, Reddit. Okay. So anger is another emotion, probably around politics. Anger, question mark, politics. We have about 1 more minute. I'm just going to start taking a look at other folks' ideas. What makes you come back to the same store for shopping online? How do the colors affect your shopping experience? How do you usually choose your products online? These are a good start to questions. I would try to ask more what questions and why questions in the future. Why do you choose to live in co-housing in the first place? What it's like to live with others, advantages and frustrations. This is a really good start. How do you deal with conflicts with other residents? Really, really good questions. I think we could expand these 3 questions into an entire interview guide for the co-housing idea. And then finally, what role does your target language play in your life right now? What prevents you from practicing? Love these what questions. This is really thoughtful. Perfect. I see a lot of really great questions being asked. So we're going to go right into the next activity. Just give me 1 sec to put my dog in the bedroom because I know she's barking. So just give me a second. All right. Sorry about that interruption. She's like my little toddler sometimes. So let's go into the differentiator. So take 4 minutes to collect whatever data you were able to collect and synthesize it into a problem statement or differentiator statement. So when you're trying to write a differentiator statement, think about what your partner or what the consumers in your demographic are trying to achieve. What are your partner's feelings or the demographics feelings and motivations? What do what do you see that perhaps they do not see? That's what makes a really good researcher uh, different from just copying and pasting the data that our consumers told us, right? We're gathering a unique insight. So this could be a potential format on how you can write a differentiator statement. Consumer type needs a way to consumer need, but or surprisingly, here's the insight. So take some time to think about that. We're going to put a timer on for 4 minutes to start to synthesize that. So from what I'm looking at online, and I obviously need to do a lot more research, I'm going to say social media consumers need a way to um, reduce their addiction because they feel depressed, angry, lethargic, with too much consumption, surprisingly, social media users or consumers need ways to wean off their usage and engage more intentionally with real life IRL connection. Need, should I say extreme or thoughtful ways? Multiple ways, because it looks like people try multiple things. And as a researcher, what do I see that maybe the folks who are in it don't see? So maybe we need to do some research on addiction recovery and kind of the emotions and withdrawal symptoms of addiction, right? What's the psychology behind addiction recovery, withdrawal symptoms, getting better over time? So all of that psychology is going to help me design a more thoughtful experience for my consumers at the end of the day. I'll just give everyone about a minute to wrap up their thinking on a differentiator statement. All right, we're just about to wrap up. So I see here a statement, neurodivergent people need a way to feel more comfortable when shopping online because the current interface is not adjusted to their needs. Surprisingly, many stores would rather flood the feeds with even more products instead of adjusting to customer needs. I love that. This is a really thoughtful problem statement with the differentiator as well. I see a couple of folks still working. Intergenerational housing, co-housing residents need a way to a more efficient and vibrant community because surprisingly they can be drained for meeting fatigue and togetherness traps. Yes, I love it. What's that kind of distinction between being two together versus being two separate, right? What's that happy medium? So these are some really great starts. In the interest of time, I'm going to move to the the last two activities because we have about 20 more minutes left. So let's take 8 minutes to come up with at least 4 blue sky ideas to meet our users' needs. So I'm going to set the timer for 8 minutes or maybe 9, just so that we have that 1 extra minute. And let's go ahead and start to sketch out ideas. If you're not as comfortable with the sketching tool, you can always put sticky note ideas, but I would like it if you tried to sketch some ideas out. So now I'm realizing when I look at my original ideas, I'm thinking a lot about like meetups and like the inner circle, but really the problem is addiction. After doing my initial research, I realized people do want to do those things, but they're just like hooked, right? And they are too addicted to the way the platform delivers content. So, how can I make this more intentional and kind of help people with their withdrawal away from social media? Um, so let's think. Hmm. Maybe it could be about a heavily curated feed as an in-between, right? So maybe I turn on if I have certain people that I follow, I can set the frequency for how much I want to engage with their content. So maybe these top three people are my inner circle. So I engage with their content all the time and I can set, check marks for how much I want to engage with their content. They're my inner circle. I wonder if I can change the color. Yes, I can. Ooh. Okay, yeah, the green is my inner circle. And because I want to keep in touch with them every day, I'm okay with seeing their content every single day. So maybe this is like Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday. And then maybe there's people in yellow who are influencers or outer circle folks who I'd like to keep up with on a weekly basis or maybe a monthly basis. And then there's influencers who I would like to see their content, but I don't want it overwhelming my feed because they're not my in real life people. So that is one idea, is just to like curate how much I see different people's content. So I'm just going to put an idea down here. Curate how much I see content based on inner circle versus influencer. Let's come up with a new idea. So to get my usage down, maybe I have a hard limit and it says stop when I reach my limit. So if I set my limit to 30 minutes, it gives me a guide. Ooh, yeah, now I have two ideas. So if I only have 30 minutes to scroll a day, I make that really thoughtful and it gives me like a summary of what I should look at from my inner circle, my outer circle, and my influencers. And that way I spend my time really thoughtfully and I catch up on my inner circle folks first, then I catch up on my outer circle, then I catch up on my influencer content. And in those 30 minutes, and after that 30 minutes, it's going to tell me stop, and I stop. And I have thoughtfully digested content on social media without going overboard and doom scrolling. Thoughtful summary digest of social media content daily. Maybe this is integrated across everything, right? So Instagram, Meta, YouTube, LinkedIn. I can just put all my social media in one place, which brings me to my next idea with 5 minutes. Okay. So this is a social media aggregate now, and it's going to aggregate everything. So maybe my daily digest now doesn't just look like Instagram, but here's my LinkedIn, here's my YouTube, here's my Insta, here's my Facebook. And it's just giving me a summary. And then when I click into that summary, I can like look into things more. Or maybe it realizes with all the content I need to digest, maybe the LinkedIn summary is 1 hour. Maybe YouTube is 3 hours. And so it gives you kind of a timeline on like how much time it would take to consume all that content. So I'm just more aware of how much time I'm spending. Um, and now I can kind of choose throughout the week to kind of consume that content. And maybe that content changes depending on the time of the week and things like that. So I'm just going to write that down. Social media aggregator, making me aware of how much time I spend on each platform, curates my content thoughtfully. And now we're getting more into that call to action phase, right? So, what am I getting out of it? What's the so what of consuming this content online? And like, how is it like, is it actually affecting my life for the better? So, maybe there's a way for calls to action to happen in this platform where if I'm not taking action on a content, action yes or no, then it kind of deletes that content from my platform. So if I'm not going to a meetup or an event or learning something or buying a book from some influencer, then why am I watching that content in the first place, right? So maybe it like deletes content if you're not engaging with it or it's not giving you an actionable outcome. So maybe it gives me like a here's what we recommend deleting like from your feed this week because you didn't really take action on it. You said you would, but you didn't. So do you really need it? Here's who you actually look at. So maybe after using this app for a little bit, I realized that I don't really take action on 60% of the content in my app, and I only take action on that last 40 to 20%. And so this is what I keep, and this is what I delete. Delete, 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 delete. And so I'm slowly reducing my consumption, but making my consumption more meaningful. Or maybe there's also an AI feature here that could recommend new content based on what was deleted. Keep only what I take action on. Delete anything else every week. Discover new content I take action on. All right. I think I think I have more ideas, but I'm just gonna like wait and think through them more because now I'm starting to think about business models. Platforms like Meta and Facebook would probably sue me if I built an app like this because then especially if it went viral, their discovery content would get messed up and their discovery algorithms would get messed up. Or they might try and prevent me from doing an add-on aggregate of their platform. So I'm like just thinking through the business side of things and, would I do a subscription model for consumers? Would I become like a Google for social media? Because Google links all I'm just thinking out loud, links all these brands, but doesn't control those brands, right? So if I become a Google for social media and create an aggregate page, then I could do something like Google AdWords and I could get Meta and Instagram to pay me, right? Get paid by social media to advertise certain content. So it really would change the creator economy. I hope for the better, but there could also be a dark side to what I create, right? No idea is perfect. So in the interest of time, I just wanted to ask folks how they feel at this stage. How did that feel? How did the idea activity feel now that we've had a little bit more time to sit with our problem and get some context?
Well, if we're getting more familiar with what we're working with or the idea that we first thought of,
Yeah.
so brainstorming it with more time and actually putting it to paper, drawing it makes us like look within a different perspective to the issue that we're handling.
Yeah, exactly. And this is just in 1 hour, right? Imagine what we could do with 2 weeks. Imagine what we could do with 2 months, with 2 years, right? We could really be refining whatever we build and make it more thoughtful, intentional, and business minded. So design process is essentially this, what we did in 40, 50 minutes, but iterated over time for different levels, lengths of time. And we just become more comfortable thinking about our ideas. We think of it from multiple perspectives. And we also think about where do our ideas fall short, which is the last, let's say, 4 minutes. So we now know what we know, but we also know how much we don't know, right? And so here now I'm thinking, and maybe this is where I should have put that sticky note, is the business model side of things. What should the business model be? Um, you know, what would be the fallout with social media? Would social media platforms sue me? Stop me from aggregating? Right? It's not just about the consumer, right? We do need to develop better habits for our consumers, but we also need to think about the business side and the operations of how this would run. Google seems to be the best way to do things, but maybe there's other ways. Um, where do the ideas fall short? Uh, would this feel too restrictive to users? I'm making the assumption that this will go viral. What if people hated it, right? Considering the opposite, what if it feels too restrictive, too controlling? Can we set levels of control, restriction? So again, trying to think through the opposite and argue my ideas from both perspectives, from two completely different angles. And what about from a builder point of view, right? We do have to take into account builders and software engineers, and how hard is it to aggregate social media? How hard is it to update discovery content? Like, the whole Google search engine has to index all these different pieces of content and then surface the most relevant stuff to us. How does this platform surface most relevant content? So this is all algorithm design. It might be AI product design to consider. Right? Definitely not going to solve all these problems in one day, let alone 1 hour. So I'll give everyone about a minute to wrap up on their ideas. And for our last session, we're going to take a little break in the next 2 minutes or so, and get back at 4 p.m. But for the last session, I kind of wanted to leave it more open-ended and more question-based. So if you have questions about UX as a career path, building a problem statement, going through the design process, resources that we have, both free and paid, I think that's where the portfolio planning will come into consideration, especially for the folks who are really actively participating in the UX career planning session. I think this is now giving you that overview of, okay, what do I have from my past that carries over? What's the new stuff I need to build based on the gaps in my knowledge in UX, which is basically these last 2 sessions we did. And now how do I put it all together in one portfolio and have 3 to 5 portfolio pieces? Where do I need help, right? You don't have to do this all alone. So where can I get help to put together my UX portfolio? So yeah, the last session is going to be much more open-ended, more question and answer based, and just kind of seeing where you are now that you've gone through these 3 main activities. All right. So with that, let's get back together at 4 p.m. and we can continue for the final activity then. See you at 4 p.m.